Today we're looking at a fire damaged dwelling in the suburbs of Melbourne. We're going to start at the rear of the dwelling. So this is quite a large house. This is the back end, the opposite end of the fire. So while there's not a lot of fire damage in this area, there is quite a lot of smoke damage. A lot of these areas contain elements that will need to be replaced. So this kitchen, for example, the cabinetry, the appliances, all that likely needs to be replaced just simply due to the smoke damage. So it's not always the fire directly that does the damage. Smoke can be a significant factor as well. Now this fire burnt for quite a long time, and we can see on the wall here, this is an inverter unit, and as you can see, the heat was intense enough that this has actually started to melt off of the wall, bearing in mind that this is the opposite end of the house to where the fire was actually located. So moving down, the carpet is obviously totally ruined. Tiles which were once white are now totally black. As you can see on this timber here, as we get closer to the fire source, we can see bubbling of the paint work. So the paint is just bubbled off of the timber due to the heat. We're getting closer towards the fire source now. It's a split level dwelling, so at the upper level, there's a level directly below us now. There's another split system unit that's just totally melted off the wall, and you can see the melting to this element is far more significant than the first one we saw. Obviously being closer to the fire, the heat is more intense, and all the furniture obviously totally ruined. Smoke damage has gone through most of the dwelling, with fire damage, direct fire damage occurring to some of the timber elements. So this is the main entry stair, what used to be a stair, totally burnt out and collapsed. So down the bottom of this stair is the main entry to the dwelling, the front entry. We entered through the rear because it was a safe access point. And as we see here, we're starting to see more direct fire damage on the actual timber members in the primary structure. There's a skylight up there which is now melted out and totally disappeared. We can start to see charring of timber, significant bubbling and peeling of paint. We're now reaching a dangerous point, which we're not going to go any further. We're just going to peek underneath here. So in that room down there, the lower level is where the fire actually started. To the left here is a bathroom, and that floor is totally failed. There's been members that have been totally burnt out, and there's not a lot holding up that portion to the left. So very careful to not enter the dangerous areas of the dwelling. So we can see now some ceiling that's been burnt out, the adjacent bathroom, smoke damage, and this is the closest bedroom to the fire source here. So if we stop right there, directly beneath this point is where the actual fire started. So we understand that it was a lithium-ion battery that was charging at the time, which caught fire, and that was the spark, if you like, that started the fire event. And obviously there's a lot more decay of timber, total burning out of timber and charring, a lot more significant direct fire damage to the actual structure. So now we're going to go through the main entry of the dwelling, being careful to not go beneath the areas that are partly failed. This point here is where the fire source was in the corner. We were up to the right here within that bedroom looking down just a moment ago. And as you can see, the walls are totally burnt out. There's significant damage. There's charring to the timbers, so there's a suspended timber floor directly above us, so joists and bearers. Charring has occurred directly to the timbers. And adjacent either side of this room, it actually reverts to a concrete slab supported by a masonry wall. So we're now going to go to the adjacent room in one moment and have a look how the fire affected that room. Different construction type being concrete. So let's take a look how this has been affected by the fire. This was a downstairs gym, as you can see. So we've got masonry walls. This is the soffit of a concrete slab. And as we can see here, we've got some cracking which has occurred, and due to the coloration you can see that the cracking has likely occurred after the fire event itself. So the slab's heated up quite significantly and the fire brigades come through, douse the fire with water, and the expansion and shrinkage through that process has resulted in this cracking that you can see on the soffit. So the cracks are appearing a bit lighter, a bit less smoke affected, so it's likely occurred as the slab's cooled. There's two beams, support beams in this slab, so it's a one-way slab between concrete beams. This is the beam that's closest to the fire source. The beam in the background is the beam furthest away from the fire source from where we currently stand. So if we take a closer look at this beam, looks like there's a little bit of concrete cancer that's actually likely been there from the construction, since the construction of the dwelling itself. But as you can see, there's been some heat damage caused to the structure. That's not how concrete should behave, obviously. Being able to pull chunks of concrete and aggregate out of a beam is not at all normal. So I can quite easily just start to pull out aggregate, which is not ideal, obviously, for the homeowner when it comes time to repair. We just stop here. There's another significant crack on the side of the beam, again because of the color difference and the lighter concrete coming through. This is likely caused as a result of the cooling of the slab after the fire event, and as you can see, there's been some aggregate fall away as well on this side, and there's likely needing to be quite a lot of testing applied to this concrete slab before we can say that it's safe to use. Now we're going to look at the beam that's further away from the fire and what a difference a few meters can make. This is in much better condition compared to the beam close to the fire. It's deteriorated slightly. There are some localized areas that can peel away and crumble, but for the most part this beam is relatively sound. There's just a little bit of concrete I've managed to pry off there, but it's a lot more sound than the adjacent beam.